There are those in the GTA universe that are easy to hate, and there are those that have personalities somewhat reasonable considering how insane half the characters are. But then there are those that aren't exactly likable early on, but grow on you like a fungus. And some that in real life would actually be hard to like in person, but that we love in the game so easily. And we wanted to take some time to talk about what we love about them and why they may have some rough edges. But hey, nobody's perfect, unless your candy sucks. Today we're going to talk about what makes Jonah Hill's doppelganger actually cool, and what makes grown men covered in feces still enjoyable to be around. If you're here from our Constellations gaming channel, thanks for dropping by. We wanted to dedicate this one to one of our favorite series in all of gaming history. And if you're new here and enjoy GTA, then you're in the right place and should consider subbing. We plan on dropping videos every Saturday for all things GTA based. Thanks for watching and enjoy the vid.
Mikey, you want a beer? Oh, shit, I'm sorry I don't have any low carb.
You.
We had to kick things off with someone we love deeply. But why is he on our hate to love list? I mean, come on, if this were real life, how likely would you actually hang out with this guy? The initial impressions we get of him are absolutely manic in the beginning. And although we love his don't give a fuck attitude and his antics, he'd be a hard one to enjoy in real life. He's a walking disaster, and yet somehow you can't seem to look away from him. And this is because he's both disgusting and entertaining at the same time. He's magnetic, and this is because Rockstar didn't write Trevor to be cool. They wrote him to be raw. He's not even pretending to be normal like ever. He's the one guy who shows up and instantly makes everyone in the room uncomfortable, because you can feel that he might explode over literally anything. But throughout the story, something interesting happens. He ends up being one of the most human characters in the game. See, Trevor is a career criminal and a former bank robber who ends up running his own operation out in Blaine County called Trevor Phillips Enterprises. We quickly find out it's an operation involving drugs, weapons, and whatever else makes money, and most of it is highly illegal. He surrounds himself with the likes of Ron, Wade, and Chef, and that ragtag crew of gentlemen tells us a lot about Trevor himself. He doesn't build normal friendships so much as he builds an orbit. People circle him because they're scared, and they're loyal, because they too are broken in a way that fits with his own brokenness, or because they just don't know how to leave.
Run!
The people closest to Trevor are basically always walking on eggshells, because they know one wrong word can flip him from joking to violent in half a second. And yet, that's not the whole story. The reason Trevor sticks in people's heads aside from being loud and dangerous is because he's also weirdly emotional and weirdly sensitive in ways he'd never admit without yelling right after. The chemistry of his past and present relationships make him extremely loyal, despite him yelling or punching half his friends in their face. A lot of what we know about Trevor's childhood comes from Trevor himself, so you always have to keep that in mind. I guess you could say he's theatrical and he performs, and he likes that shock value as he tells stories. But even if you assume he's inflating the details, the big picture is still fairly vivid. He grew up unstable and bounced around. Growing up, he felt unwanted. He had an abusive father and a mother who didn't treat him like he mattered. It's the kind of childhood that doesn't teach you how to calm down or feel safe, but it does teach you how to survive. And one of the ways Trevor survives is by making sure nobody can ever have power over him without paying for it. And this is why he's so extreme. Trevor isn't just violent because he enjoys the violence. Well, okay, sometimes he does, sure, but a lot of the time it feels like he's violent because he can't handle being embarrassed, or rejected, lied to, or ignored for that matter. He doesn't process feelings like a normal person. Instead, he turns feelings into destruction. If something hurts him, he doesn't sit with it or stew on it. As we get to know Trevor, we find that he'd rather burn the room down and call it a solution. And although in the beginning we may think that Trevor's story is about him cooking drugs in the desert like a GTA version of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman, that's actually just the surface. The center of his story is Michael. Trevor and Michael were partners back in the day, and they did a shit ton of scores together, as we see in the opening sequence of GTA 5. They ran all over the Midwest, pulling robberies whilst building a reputation and living like the world was theirs. Trevor talks about that time like it was the closest thing he ever had to a real life. To Michael, it's more of a criminal chapter. To Trevor, it's a bond. It's loyalty. It's the one relationship for him that felt solid. Then the job in the North in 2004 happens, and everything breaks. Michael secretly makes a deal with the corrupt FIB agent to fake his death and escape the criminal life. The plan is that Trevor gets taken out and Michael gets to start fresh in Los Santos with his family. But the heist goes sideways and we see the police show up with the crew getting hit hard, and in the chaos, Brad ends up dying. Trevor gets away believing Michael is dead and believing Brad is alive, probably in prison. He doesn't know the truth, and that truth is going to rot inside him for years. But this is where Trevor becomes the Trevor we meet in the game. He can't access his old money and his identity is burned. Whatever stability he had is gone. so he makes a new version of himself in Sandy Shores. He establishes Trevor Phillips Enterprises, or Industries, it technically goes by both. He gets deep into meth and he starts living like a man who decided the world is a joke and the only way to win is to stop caring. Judging by his appearance alone, he's not trying to be respectable. Judging by his actions, he's not trying to heal. He's basically daring life to hit him even harder. Then the moment happens that kicks the whole story into gear. Trevor hears about a jewelry store robbery in Los Santos, and a witness mentions one of the robbers quoted a line that sounds exactly like something Michael used to do.
Albert Story had a lucky escape when the thieves ran straight into him.
Yeah, I was just doing my job, and I say to this guy, hey, you gotta move these bikes.
I don't know anything about that.
That detail eats at our boy Trev, and we get to see him start to care about something more. And what's amazing is his first reaction isn't joy that his friend might be alive, it's pure rage. Because if Michael is alive, Trevor didn't lose him to death, rather Trevor lost him to choice, and Trevor got left behind. At this point in the story, Trevor became something more for me because his character arc started to burst through the seams. While Trevor may not care about his outside appearance, we get a little taste that this guy's honor actually means something when it comes to those close to him. That's when Trevor heads to Los Santos, and the second he enters Michael's life again, everything that was buried comes back up. He shocks Michael's whole family just by showing up in his invasive Trevor fashion.
Somebody say yoga?
But even in those first scenes, you see something that's easy to miss. He cares about Michael's kids in his own warped way, and he's protective. When Tracy is about to embarrass herself on TV and Laszlo gets creepy, Trevor gets angry and he reacts. He's not a stable father figure by any means or anything close to it, but he acts like an uncle who would absolutely hurt somebody for crossing a line. And for me, that is when I began to mentally take note of the kind of guy we were actually playing as in this game. This is the core of why he's a hate-to-love character. Trevor is awful, but he's also not fake. He doesn't pretend he's a good person, and he's honest about being broken. In fact, I would say he's honest about being dangerous, and weirdly, that honesty can feel more real than characters who act moral while doing shady stuff behind the scenes. In Los Santos, we see a shit ton of characters care about what others think, and that's because of the setting that it takes place in. But Trevor breaks that veil and wears his heart on his sleeve more than a random person would ever know. And at the same time, Trevor is also a bully. He humiliates people. He terrorizes the weaker people around him, especially guys like Ron and Wade and Floyd. He uses intimidation as entertainment, and sometimes it's not even about money or survival. The guy likes to be the boss and dominate. It's about making sure someone else feels small so he can feel in control for 5 seconds. That's why you can't really defend him either, and you're not supposed to. Trevor does things that are disgusting, and he crosses lines that aren't fun villain lines. He's meant to make you uncomfortable like the anti-hero he is. He's meant to make you laugh and then feel gross that you laughed. He's like an incredible joke you heard in high school because he's funny, but he's not someone you bring up in certain conversations. But then Rockstar does the thing that makes Trevor so damn good. They show the wiring underneath. They show that for all his violence and insanity, he's still driven by something simple: abandonment. The guy is terrified of being disposable. His worst fear is that he doesn't matter, and you see it in the way he clings to Michael, even while screaming that he hates him. You see it in the way he reacts to disrespect and melts down when things don't go his way. His aggression is a lot of panic and confidence warped into whatever this is. That all explodes when Trevor finally realizes the truth about North Yankton. He goes back and digs up the grave and finds out Brad was buried in Michael's place. That's the moment Trevor stops being the crazy guy in the desert and becomes something more raw. We see him witness betrayal firsthand, and it's confirmation that the story he lived with for 9 years was a lie. Michael obviously wasn't dead and Brad wasn't in prison, and the loyalty that Trevor was suspicious of all comes tumbling down. Trevor was played, and what makes it hurt is what he does after that. A normal person might have fully cut Michael off for being a bad friend. Trevor spirals and lashes out, but he still ends up back in the same orbit. He still ends up on jobs with Michael and Franklin chasing the big score, because as much as he wants to destroy Michael, Trevor also can't let go of the idea that what they had was real. He wants it to mean something. He wants the betrayal to have a reason big enough to swallow. This is also where Franklin comes in, and it's a big reason Trevor works as a protagonist instead of just a villain.
Hello, Franklin. What's up?
Franklin isn't intimidated by him the way everybody else is. Franklin can talk to him like a person, and Trevor, in his own twisted way, starts treating Franklin like someone worth mentoring. It's not a healthy mentorship with life advice. It's more like Trevor sees a younger version of someone who still has choices, and sometimes he wants Franklin to be tougher, and sometimes he wants Franklin to be real. But deep down, he also wants Franklin to stick around so he isn't alone. And then by the end of the story, we get a final choice. The people in power want Trevor dead because he's unpredictable and they're not wrong. Trevor is a liability because he's the kind of person you can't manage, and that scares institutions. If the Death Wish path happens, Trevor ends up fighting alongside Michael and Franklin, and you see the real truth about him. He can be loyal and he always shows up. He He commits to the team despite plenty of reasons not to. By the end, he's still Trevor though. He just gets a moment where his loyalty wins over his rage, and that's why he's so memorable for me. You spend the whole game thinking he might be one thing, but you see these glimpses of honor in him, and then he proves he is much, much more. Trevor is a complex character you can't clean up into a simple take. He's terrifying and pathetic at the same time, making him an absolute enigma and one of my favorite characters in the GTA series. He's cruel and needy at the same time, which makes him a bully, but desperate for connection. He's easy to dislike or even despise in the beginning because he's a guy who will threaten the world. But as we find out, he'd likely then admit he's lonely, then scream at you for noticing. Trevor is basically chaos with feelings, and when he shows up, the game stops feeling like a crime story and starts feeling like you just invited a human grenade into the room. And now, everyone has to figure out whether it's going to explode or cry.
I love Jimmy. When I first saw him getting mixed up in the simian situation early in the game, I was convinced he was going to be voiced by Jonah Hill. But Danny Tamborelli absolutely nailed the voice acting.
My brother from another mother. I mean, I hope so, because my mom was kind of a skank back in the day. See ya.
Jimmy DeSanta shows up to specifically make you hate him, and it works pretty well. He's lazy, disrespectful, annoying, the list goes on. At the time, he was relatable for a lot of us that were still in high school. Most of the early game has him yelling into his headset like every teenager on Xbox Live since Halo 3. It's easy to dislike him when you first meet him because his whole personality revolves around blaming Michael for everything wrong in his life while refusing to own his own shit.
Mom was right about you. You don't know any better and you can't help it, but you're an asshole.
Yeah, well, why don't you do something then? Besides just stand there. Why don't you hit me?
Is that what you want, to be hit by your son?
Yeah. No. I just want you to do something. Besides, sit there, eating.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the guidance, Dad. It means a lot.
But every now and then you catch small moments where he seems to realize, just barely, that he's part of the problem. Somewhat. He's around 20 and unemployed and constantly high, burning through money he never earned, all while being convinced he's the smartest person wherever he happens to be. And none of that really gives you a reason to cheer for him. Jimmy starts to grow on you once you look past all that surface level garbage. Underneath it, there's a very real and insecure kid who clearly has no idea who he is or what he's supposed to do next. A lot of that traces back to Michael faking his death and then failing to be present in any real way once they settled into their new home. Jimmy growing up was dealing with an absent and angry father, alongside a mom who was openly cheating and treated the house like a revolving door while chasing fixes for her own problems. Escapism became Jimmy's outlet. The weed and the games took him out of a bad situation. A lot of Jimmy's early moments play out like a kid lashing out. Selling Michael's yacht for money was a terrible idea, and it reeked of desperation to get his dad's attention. Drugging Michael and then pushing him out of the car makes sense in his head as payback. But the second he's actually left alone, everything goes wrong. He realizes he made a mistake and can't handle being alone, so he cruises his ass back home. As time flies, we see Jimmy slowly shift into that love-to-hate territory. There's not a singular moment where you're like, hell yeah, finally. But the gradual changes do start to happen. Instead of dumping all the blame on Michael, he starts actually talking to him. He slowly lets his guard down and he feels genuine. And he straight up tells Michael that he's making an effort to improve. We see Jimmy rise up during the Merryweather home invasion, when Jimmy helps defend his family. Watching him throw on those night vision goggles, shut off the power, creep up behind a mercenary and knock him out with a bong is one of my favorite scenes in the game. What's even better is when he starts teabagging the guy, and instead accidentally teabags Michael.
I'm gonna start shooting! Fuck!
Yeah, you like that, don't you, huh? Take it all.
Get off me!
I thought I was on that guy.
So you sit on his face?
It's called teabagging.
It's hilarious, and it shows us that little Jimmy stepped up his game, but he's still him. At the premiere of Meltdown, it's obvious he still wants Michael's approval. He shows up in a suit and gets genuinely excited for the movie. Eventually, Jimmy becomes one of the few people in Michael's life who actually puts effort into reconnecting instead of dodging the relationship. He's still whiny and an idiot, but there's hope for him. For me, Jimmy definitely ends up as one of those characters you hate to love. He's a loud silver spoon nightmare, but he's also a kid who grew up in a broken family with no real idea what adulthood is supposed to look like. When moments of genuine care slip through, like helping save Michael or openly mocking the yoga instructor, you can start to see the Chad version of Jimmy. When he turns up in GTA Online, sweeping floors in an arcade, because Lester told him it was in games. It's funny, but nice. At least he's making an attempt to work. Good old Wade. When you first meet him, you're probably laughing to yourself, but he eventually grows on you. He shows up in GTA 5 looking like a juggalo who lost his way home from the meetup. Almost everything he says comes out like he's figuring it out while he's already talking.
Los Santos is a big place, Trevor. There's lots of people.
You are useless. Huh?
By all logic, he should be annoying, but he really isn't. Somehow he just keeps growing on you the longer he's around. A lot of that comes back to his loyalty for Trevor. Their relationship is messed up in literally every way possible. Trevor treats Wade in a way that sits somewhere between being useful and being disposable. Wade admires Trevor and fully believes everything Trevor says. Even when it's obvious, Trevor isn't being honest. In Wade's mind, Trevor rescued him, even though Trevor is also the reason Wade's original friends disappeared. Wade never puts together that Trevor killed them. Instead, he assumes they abandoned him, and because he desperately wants someone to care about him, he sticks to Trevor like that's the best thing that's ever happened to him. What catches people off guard is how helpful Wade actually becomes. The guy who struggles to finish a thought still managed to track down Michael DeSanta using the name Michael Townley. That alone points Trevor towards Michael's new identity and leads them straight to the city that he's hiding in. Lester is meant to be the mastermind in GTA 5, but somehow Wade still plays a part in uncovering one of the story's biggest reveals. He also helps Trevor scout out the docks for a heist, and he sticks around without complaining too much, even while getting treated like garbage. We see Wade as a clueless sidekick, but when things actually need to get done, he's usually there and doing what he's told. Maybe not efficiently, but if it gets done, who's complaining? And why is Wade so innocent compared to everyone else? Most of the characters in GTA 5 want something specific. Michael lies to the people around him. Trevor tears through life like a walking disaster. Franklin is caught between the life he wants and his past. Wade is just trying to keep pace with what's happening around him. Planning clearly isn't his strong suit, and a lot of the situation he gets dragged into don't really make sense to him. Looking at the world through that kind of childlike mindset makes Wade funny without him even trying, including moments that really shouldn't be funny at all. The living situation with Floyd is a good example. Wade and Trevor basically move into Floyd's apartment uninvited, and shit hits the fan. After Floyd and Deborah wind up dead, Trevor tells Wade they disappeared, just like Wade's old friends, and Wade seems hesitant, but he accepts it. Most people would question it, but Wade doesn't have the awareness or suspicion to really connect what's right in front of him. And no matter the reason, it's about as close as Trevor ever gets to showing care towards anyone. By the end of the story, Wade is living inside the vanilla unicorn with two strippers constantly keeping him company. He tells Trevor he tries to leave sometimes, but every time he does, the girls give him another dance, so he stays. It's a nice ending for a guy who was constantly taking shit the entire game. I think hating to love Wade is natural. He's sad and pathetic, but you start to feel bad for him. Him being so naive is what makes him funny, and why he feels so genuine.
Who else remembers walking into this, what appears to be Incel's home? With flies buzzing around, Lester Crest is the kind of character you either don't notice at first or get weird vibes from initially. Unlike Trevor, he doesn't dominate a room by being loud or scary. Lester dominates it by already knowing how everything is going to end before anyone else realizes there's a problem. Like Trevor, his first impression isn't that great. This is why he fits perfectly into characters you hate to love. Lester is the brain sitting 10 steps back, watching everyone move, already adjusting the plan in his head, and by definition, he's a man who plays chess while everyone else is playing checkers. He's the kind of guy who looks awkward and physically limited, but quietly controls the direction of the entire story like the puppet master we know him to be. He's born with a wasting disease that slowly destroys his muscle strength, leaving him wheelchair-bound for most of his life, only able to walk short distances with a cane. This detail matters because Lester grew up in a world where he was never going to be intimidating in at least a physical sense. He isn't the stereotype of criminal that scares others into compliance, so he learned something more effective by learning how systems work. He also learned how people work and how to pull strings instead of punches. Before the events of GTA 5, Lester studies, tries to go legitimate, even applies for a faculty position at the University of San Andreas, but then he gets rejected, and instead of taking that quietly, he hacks their systems as revenge. If you listen to him, he actually jokes about it later, saying it never gets old. Lester doesn't forget slights. Like the genius he is, and based on his vengefulness, we learn that he catalogs and he waits. And when the time is right, he hits back in a way that proves he was smarter all along. Somewhere along the line, Lester meets Michael and Trevor out in the Midwest, and that's where a shift happens. The three of them form a crew, but not as equals. Michael is the professional criminal. Trevor is the chaos. Lester is the planner, the guy who sees angles nobody else sees. He's the one thinking about the Union Depository years before it ever becomes real. He's the one imagining the biggest score in Los Santos while the other two are still worrying about the next job. And when the 2004 Ludendorff heist comes up, Lester refuses to participate because he knows it's a bad idea. He trusts his read of the situation, and he's right. The job goes sideways, Michael dies.
Allegedly.
Brad gets arrested, and Trevor disappears into the desert. Lester is the only one who doesn't buy the story at face value. As he investigates, he figures out that Michael faked his death and cut a deal with the FIB. At this point, Lester is actually unsettling in my opinion because he knows Michael is alive and where he is, but he says nothing. At first glance, you might think that Lester would catch certain feelings of being slighted like Trevor did. The difference with Lester is that Michael never tells the FIB that Lester was part of the old crew, and Lester returns that silence. But if you peel back the layers, this is actually done out of strategy more than loyalty, and Lester understands leverage. He understands that secrets are currency, so he moves to Los Santos, buys the garment factory, sets up fronts, and waits. He doesn't chase Michael down like Trevor does, but he lets time do the work for him. By the time GTA 5 starts, Lester is positioned perfectly because bro is literally a ghost and well insulated. He's untouchable. And when Michael finally shows up asking for help after angering Martin, Lester makes a deal. Michael wants help, Lester wants revenge on a tech CEO he despises, and both of them want money. So while I really wasn't a fan of Lester in my first playthrough, or at least at the beginning, it was because I wasn't sure the type of character his role was playing. I didn't see friendship behind his eyes, but I did begin to see the strategy his character is centered on. For me, I began to respect him because he understands that feelings are what causes strategies to fail, and Lester is just a man wanting W's. In this regard, he's hard for me not to love. But back to the story. This is where you really start to see why Lester is a hate-to-love character. He's actually using Michael in a way. For instance, he sends Michael to assassinate Jay Norris because it lets him play the stock market. He buys shares low, he kills the man, he sells high, and he does it again, and again, and again. Thankfully for us, our bank accounts reap the rewards. In true criminal fashion, Lester turns murder into market manipulation, and he's very open about it. He'll talk about corporate corruption, exploitative CEOs, broken systems, but as opposed to fixing anything, he's exploiting the exploiters. He's gaming the system that rejected him, just from the shadows. He's smart enough to see how evil the machine is and clever enough to profit from it without pretending he's better than it. But from a social angle, Lester is a mess. He's awkward and doesn't know how to talk to people. He hides behind screens, voice changers, burner phones, aliases like Long John Teabag, incredible name by the way. He admits he's bad at conversations and that he watches people instead of interacting with them. The incel joke I made before wasn't totally off base, and we see him chronically online in a way that feels intentional. Like real life was never built for him anyway.
He's a lying bastard. I've read his fucking emails. He's a fucking cheat.
We also see his character cross several lines. He spies on people in a multitude of ways like hacking webcams. He watches women without their knowledge, and he fakes his age online. Trevor calling him Lester the Molester is hilarious, and it's something we're all thinking when he says it. It's a small way Rockstar tells you not to fully trust this guy just because he's clever and disabled. Unlike a clean mastermind archetype, Lester is not noble. I hate to say it, but he's kind of bitter and resentful. He's angry at a world that didn't make room for him, and instead of trying to be loved, he decided to be indispensable, and his relationships reflect that. With Michael, there's history and tension. Michael wasn't a great friend to him back in the day, and Lester knows it. He calls out Michael's hypocrisy constantly, but he still works with him. And this is because Michael is useful, and because deep down, Lester still wants to finish what they started years ago. With Trevor, it's pure friction. Trevor bullies Lester for his physical weaknesses. Lester thinks Trevor is reckless and stupid. Neither of them fully trust the other, but they also need each other. And that dynamic works because Lester is one of the few people who can look at Trevor's chaos and still see how to direct it instead of getting swallowed by it. Franklin, being the outlier he is, well, something different happens with him. Lester actually seems to respect him much like Trevor respects him. Franklin proves himself early, and Lester brings him deeper into the operation and trusts him with sensitive jobs. Unlike Trevor, Lester actually listens to him, and when Franklin is forced to choose between killing Michael, Trevor, or refusing both, Lester does what he does best and thinks.
All right. I say kill Michael, then kill Trevor.
At first, he even suggests killing them both, which adds to the merit of people hating this character, but he says it from a place of analysis rather than emotion. But then he does what Lester does best and zooms out to identify the real problem. Instead of sacrificing his friends, he dismantles the people pulling the strings. He lures the FIB and Merryweather into a trap while stripping Haynes and Weston of their power. He helps clean the board completely. If you don't like Lester at this point, then you likely hate his character. But for me, this is where I began to actually love the guy. I kinda hate admitting this, but it was actually closer to the end game that I began to appreciate him. That moment is why Lester works. For all his creepiness and manipulation, he's damn consistent. He believes power should belong to the people smart enough to take it, not the people born into it or backed by badges and money. By the end of the game, Lester gets what he's always wanted. The Union Depository score finally happens.
So what's going on here?
What's going on is the big one.
The dream he talked about years ago becomes real, and he doesn't even need to fire a gun through it all, so he sits back, directs traffic, and collects his cut. So why do people hate to love Lester Crest? He's not the heroic type, nor is he admirable in a clean way. He's petty, invasive, manipulative, morally flexible, likely stinks, and he uses people. He watches from the shadows while he profits from the chaos without pretending he's innocent. But you also can't deny that without Lester, none of this works. The fun big scores and clean or messy escapes wouldn't exist without this guy. We wouldn't get our opportunities to dismantle corrupt institutions. Lester is the spine of the operation and the quiet constant. The guy who proves that power doesn't always look loud or strong. Lester Crest is what happens when someone who has overlooked their entire life figures out how to make the world move around them anyway. And even if you don't like how he does it, you can't deny the results. That's why he's a character you hate to love.
Lamar Davis is one of those characters who appears and immediately starts talking shit. I mean, I might get crucified for saying this, but I actually didn't like him for the first half of the game. The funny part is that he's not trying to be a menace, he just can't help himself.
Man, we both being with, dog.
Man, knock it off, man. For real, after all the mother work I put in, man.
Man, this employee of the month shit, homie.
Lamar is that friend who somehow pulls you into trouble even when you didn't leave the house. He convinces himself that every bad idea is actually an investment opportunity. And he says it with enough confidence that you might just believe him till everything else goes to hell. He's been Franklin's best friend going back to their school days, and the two grew up running around Chamberlain Hills. Franklin starts wanting something different out of life, and Lamar stays locked into that same mindset, which is where things begin to split.
Better watch out for them ballers. They gonna be on you now. The cops gonna be on your ass too. Yeah, I ain't worried about it. I'm a mother gangster. You know how I do. I can take care of my sizzle.
No, the you kids ain't.
I honestly thought Lamar was going to end up dragging Franklin down the same way Stretch tries to do. Lamar wants to stay in the gang. Franklin wants a mortgage and a normal life. Lamar wants to steal cars and become king of Los Santos through deals that only make sense for him. This is where you start to go back and forth on him. Wherever Lamar goes, problems seem to follow. He kicks up beef with the Ballas over pride and respect. He thinks this is still the 90s. He also puts trust in the wrong people, especially Stretch, who eventually sells him out to the Ballas. Lamar keeps popping up at Franklin's house to accuse him of forgetting the hood, when what's really happening is Lamar's getting angry that Franklin moved on without him. He pulls Franklin into bad drug deals and pointless beefs, along with scams that fall apart almost immediately. For all that stupidity, Lamar stays loyal in a way that's hard not to respect. He gets on Franklin's nerves constantly, but you can tell he still cares. Franklin can snap at him or leave him hanging without saying much, and Lamar still rides for him every time. When Franklin goes back to save Lamar from the Ballas during the ambush, it's because Lamar was always loyal, even when he made things worse. Their relationship is messy and frustrating, but it doesn't feel fake, and that's probably because a lot of people have known someone like Lamar before. He's the kind of friend you'd shake your head at, but you'd still show up for him at 3 a.m., because you know he'd at least try to do the same. Every so often, we actually do see him step up. When the Death Wish ending rolls around and Franklin finally decides to stop letting everyone pull him in different directions, Lamar doesn't hesitate at all. He jumps in immediately, ready to help take on Merryweather forces in the FIB. That already puts him ahead of a lot of people in Franklin's life. And for me, that was enough to make his arc work. Later on, GTA Online gives Lamar more time in the spotlight, and somehow he becomes even more chaotic while still being really likable. He's running LD Organics, which turns into a real marijuana business that's pretty legit, even if he keeps making those same mistakes. Every time he walks into F. Clinton and Partner Agency, it turns into another chance to annoy Franklin and pull him into some new problems that didn't exist a few minutes earlier. Following Lamar through different missions, you still see the same bad decisions paired with big ambition, and that's why he's so hard to hate. He wants to be great, he's just terrible at choosing the path that actually gets him there.
So you giving me a lecture about not being a good enough gangbanger?
Gangs is positive. That's all we got, man. That's our heritage.
Ain't nothing positive about your crazy ass.
So, what character made it on your personal list of who you hate to love? Is there someone in GTA 5 that you think should have made it on the roster? Let us know in the comments. Remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and we'll see you in the next.